Look at us early birds.
Friend.
Hello. Good to see your face.
I know. Now, I might have to go off camera and skedaddle to a back room. I'm in the front right now only because it's storming and it's so dark.
Oh.
But if my dog loses his puppy mind because he can see all the cars driving by, I might have to move somewhere else. So far, he's doing pretty good.
Well, sorry about the storms.
Yeah, it's typical. It's typical for down here. We usually get them 3 o'clock up until about 6 or 7 and, normal stuff down here.
Well, we'll find out in 2026.
Yep. Hi, Brian. I don't think we've met.
Hi, no, this is my first one. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, this is my first one. I just found out about it right before the event that we're about to talk about that I can't think of right now. But,
well, welcome.
Welcome.
Excited to be here. Sorry.
Where are you, Brian? Where are you based?
I'm in St. Louis.
Oh, okay. I actually used to live in Springfield, Illinois, and St. Louis is my airport.
Okay, yeah. I've driven through Springfield a couple times when I used to live in Milwaukee. So.
Okay, yep. I thought it was always so neat that I would fly into one state, but then lived in another, it's like, wow. Yeah. Okay. Good people in St. Louis.
I like it. I've been here since 2001, I think.
Oh, wow, yeah. It's a good amount of time.
Yeah.
Tammy, I don't know about you. I'm in New Orleans.
Okay.
Thus the storms that we're having right now.
Yeah. What were you saying, Leah?
I was saying I had to keep the app in order to make my notes for things I wanted to remember.
There was nothing left online.
I know.
I was like, oh man.
Oh, but the app is still.
I wrote it down earlier.
Good, right?
Yeah, the app is still open.
Yeah.
Okay. I have a bunch of notes in my app also.
Guys. Hello.
Hey.
What's up, my friends?
Hey.
How are y'all? So good to see your faces. Jill, I think I miss walking with you.
I know, we had so much fun. That's one of my highlights today. Don't spoil it, Tara. Just kidding.
Not gonna do it.
What are you guys up to?
Oh, living the dream. I cannot seem to get in our new house. I'm always freezing. So I had to go get coffee just now.
Well, the background in your new house looks fantastic.
It's the same. I know. I'm in the process of, I'm so excited because no more boys taking over the rooms. So I'm doing this whole boho vibe.
Wow.
Super excited.
You're gonna have to give us a virtual tour or something.
No, I'm almost done, 80%.
That's so fun. I want a new house.
80% done and you just moved. I've been in my house 21 years and I'm still not even close to.
No, just in my office. Well, first of all, you had to get your whole football stadium bar.
Yeah, I know. Football comes first.
I know. Brian, we
design another time.
I'm sorry?
We never met. How are you?
No, I'm great. How are you?
Good. I was like, oh, finally someone new I get to talk to I haven't seen before.
Yeah, this is the first one I've been able to really set the time aside for. So.
Well, I mean, it's a
exciting
lineup, so I kind of understand why.
I'm the same way. I feel bad. It's so hard for me to join these, but I'm glad this one worked out today.
Same. Oh my God, is your shirt the Friends logo? I can't.
Can you see it?
That's so freaking cool.
Thank you.
I love that.
I got the idea from this Mexican restaurant that we love to eat at, and they all walk around and their shirts say the name of the restaurant on the back, and on the front it says frijoles in this. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm going to do that. with revenue. So I did.
Awesome.
Thank
What's
you.
Oh, how are you? Dave, what's going on?
Trying to
Or
get
just-
my camera straight here.
What time is it for? I'm going to give it a couple of minutes. In the meantime, I'm removing all of the plots. And then I'm going to make a couple of announcements before we kick into the actual meat and potatoes. Does anyone have anything fun to share? Any fun announcements? Anything cool and interesting?
It's raining here in Texas, like a lot.
Really?
That's not super fun, but we need it. Our lakes are dry. That's all I've got to say.
Oh, I can imagine. It's been rough. Houston took a beating. What was it, last week?
Week
Hey.
before last, yeah.
Was it? I feel like Texas gets some like next level storm. They don't mess around. Hello, everyone that's joining. Hello, Eric, Bradley, Dave, David. So good to see everybody. Mr. Knaack. It's never a call unless Joseph's on, right?
Howdy, y'all.
Kara, I saw you somewhere. Oh, there she is. She's saying, hey, everyone. What's up, Kara Rafferty? Oh, good idea, Tammy. Y'all put your LinkedIn in the
I
chat.
didn't start it. Dave started it.
Oh, well, whoever started it, thanks for starting it. I always think that's a really good thing to do. All right, well, I'll kick it off with a couple of announcements before we get into our actual recap. What's up, smart chick? So we have, for those of you that didn't see the new member email yesterday, we officially have a new little club in the mentor group. And so a handful of our avid readers have come together and said that they will launch what we thought was going to be a book club, but then Kendra got really creative and we had some really open discussions about how looking at the member questionnaire, there's actually some people who don't read, and that's cool. There's some people who are like, oh, I'd rather have a podcast. So Kendra came up with a super creative name called, do you want to say it, Kendra, since you came up with it?
Pages, Podcasts, and Peers.
Pages, Podcasts, and Peers. So what does that mean? Yes, and that's that's our first selection. So that is called The Respectful Leader by, what's that guy's name?
Greg Ward.
Yeah. So basically what we're going to do is we're going to kick it off in August. So it's going to be our first discussion is August 14th at 12 Eastern. The book is also available on Audible, which was a big thing. Lauren, I think you caught that. We want to make it as inclusive as possible. So here's kind of the deal. Whoever picks the book is kind of going to help lead the discussion. Our goal is to have 2 discussions per month about that selection. And then the next month would be a podcast. The next month we'll go back to a book. And so that's going to be the format. You guys, if you don't, and this is one of the things I said is like, if people want to be part of the discussion and you don't pick up the damn book or whatever, I don't care. Like, we don't care. We just want to have like, honestly, there's going to be some of us that take it super serious and read it. And some of us are just going to ask chat to summarize it. And then there's going to be some of us that just don't care and maybe just want to be part of the community discussion. All of that is okay. So if you want to join the call and you're like, well, I want to understand the highlights of Respectful Leader or whatever that selection is, go ahead and let us do the work. It's fine. We promise. It's totally okay. we just really wanted to create something that was like this group, just always all inclusive. So that kicks off again. I'll send out an invite. Please don't feel pressured. August 14th, 12 Eastern, The Respectful Leader by Greg Ward. Would you like to, Dave, did you want to announce your Audible thing?
Oh, sure.
Everybody?
If you're like me and you have, no time to sit down and read a book, I actually have an Audible hookup. So if you want discounted Audible memberships, I have a hookup. I have a guy for that. It's actually a woman. So it's $50 for 6 credits or $75 for 12 credits. So, message me offline and I'm happy to hook you up. Normally it's $90 and $150, so it's a decent savings.
So he's got like the dark side hookup going on.
I do, yeah, totally black market. Yep.
Black market for sure.
Exactly.
Okay, so that was one announcement. What the hell was the other one? Guys, this happened to me on the last dang call. Oh, we're one away from 500. One away from reaching 500 members. So any moment now, I'm watching it go live. We hit 499 yesterday. For those of you that don't know him, you should. He's awesome. Justin Jones joined the group. He's part of the multifamily Q space. He founded that affinity group. So if you do not know him, he's awesome. So he's recent and just joined. So anyway, let's get to what we're here for because a couple people have to drop early. So we're going to start with Dave. And basically what we're going to do is everyone on the slide, which I'll pull that up in a sec, is going to get 10 minutes. There is no specific format. All of the awesome volunteers who decided to do a recap are going to kind of take it in their own direction. We are recording, right? Okay, cool. So Dave, since you have to hop, once you're done, we're going to go to Joani because she has to do some softball pickup and then we'll go in order after that. So
Okay.
Dave, why don't you go ahead and kick it off?
Sweet. I'm going to stop watching the chat because, get distracted. All right. So, hi, everyone. I'm Dave Holland. I'm in upstate New York, like a couple other people on the call, which is neat. Was at Apartmentalize in Philly. That was my second Apartmentalize. First time I was there was Georgia last year, and I actually went last year as an attendee from the operator side, and this was my first time from the vendor side. So I kind of got both sides of it, which was really neat. I got 10 minutes. I'm going to run down the questions that Tara sent out. So keynote speakers was the first up. What was the message that resonated with me? So I absolutely loved the Leslie Odom Jr. presentation. I don't know anyone else who got to see that one, but that was worth the cost of admission right there, getting to see Leslie Odom Jr. I have a 9-month-old son, and one of the songs that I sing to him at bedtime is Dear Theodosia. So when Leslie sang that on stage, I'm not going to lie, I cried. That was a really, really cool moment. Innovative solutions, any innovative products or services on the expo floor. I'm going to say the show floor had a really strong mix of vendors. It seemed like the vendors are trying hard to be super specialized in their specific area rather than being a one-stop shop and trying to do a little bit of everything. I really like to explore the startup zone, see what's new, see if it's a totally new idea or just a different way of doing something that's already an existing idea. And it's really, really cool to see all the different ways that ancillary income can be generated from the operations of the property. I think some people have some really unique ideas. Educational takeaways. So like I said, I was there on the vendor side. I didn't get very much time going to some sessions, but I did get to go and support both Tammy and Lia, who are on this call, at their session about KPIs. So I wanted to shout them out for that amazing session. I really love the way that they broke down and showed how the source of a lead has such an impact upon the lifetime value of the resident. I mean, when you stop to think about it, it makes like perfect sense. Someone willing to move in because of a concession is most likely willing to move again because their competing neighbor is also offering a concession. So when you look at how much time you can get out of them, a year, 2 years, 3 years, probably going to be on the shorter side. Makes a lot of sense. I mean, just you don't ever really think about it that way. One of the next prompt here is emerging trends in the industry. What do we think is going to, be the hot topic? And I went to the Region 2 meeting. I know Kara was there. Region 2 has a hotbed of discussion about the NAA membership rate increase. Apparently they didn't do an increase for a couple of years. Now they're trying to go up 20%, and I'm not going to say anything good or bad in either way, but it will certainly affect some members, some chapters, and it's going to be an impact to a lot of people. So we'll see how that one plays out. Networking. So talk about a memorable networking experience. I am a sucker for an experiential event. I think there's so much better than like a concert or a super loud bar when you can't even talk to someone because it's so loud. I was lucky enough to be on the Second Nature Instagram bus tour. They drove us all around Philly. We stopped at a bunch of landmarks so we could get selfies, and they had some surprises along the ride, like a meeting with Rocky at the Rocky Steps and Philly cheesesteaks from Sony's famous steak hoagies. And I think the time on the bus between each stop was a great opportunity to make a new friend. I actually did some of my best networking in those 2 hours, when we were driving between stuff. Diversity and inclusion. So Tara, you have a prompt here about diversity, inclusion, DEI. And I want to just touch on the fact that Apartmentalize landed on Juneteenth, which, they schedule these conferences so far in advance that when they set this up, Juneteenth was not yet a federally recognized holiday. And I was really impressed by the way that NAA made sure to recognize and highlight the day and its importance. So I just want to put that out there. Future outlook. Share your thoughts on the future of the apartment industry based on discussions at the conference. I would say the hot thing this year was obviously AI, right? Everyone was talking about AI and releasing their new AI products and tools and whatever. And looking forward to next year, and I know that Lia will agree because we had this conversation, I think it's going to be about how the industry will respond to regulatory changes, right? Between the RealPage lawsuits, the proposed federal rent cap that just got announced, and everything else going on, if I had to bet, I would say that's going to be the center of next year's discussion. Okay, coming to the ends here. What were some of the most impactful connections you made with other members of the Mentor Matchmaking group? I would say it was really, really cool to meet so many people in person that I had only known through this environment, through a virtual setting before. From the first meeting of the group that I attended a few months ago, I got matched up with Tiffany DeAlva as my mentee, and it was really great to meet her in person. It's great being connected to her and seeing how she's been growing and succeeding. And she actually recently launched a podcast, Tiff Talks Tech, and I was honored to be one of her first guests. So if you have a second, check out the June 7th episode. I'll put the link in the chat. And then to wrap it up, one last thing here I want to add. I've been to Apartmentalize on both sides, operator and supplier. And in both situations, the event is what you make of it, right? You got to come in with a plan. You got to be active. You have to participate. You have to go to the side events and talk to people you don't know. And then be prepared to share about what you learned so that you can show value to the person or the company that spent thousands of dollars to send you there, right? On the vendor side, you got to have enthusiasm. Don't just sit behind your table and expect people to come to you, right? Have a reason for them to be drawn in, throw a party, do your research on the leads, right? Tara, I heard you say more than once that you have heard that you were sent emails as if you're an operator, right? Nobody researches, right? Yes, there's thousands of attendees and there's thousands of people on the opt-in list. And if you just blast out emails, you're not going to see as much results as if you pick maybe 30 to 50 target people and do your research, right? Have a meaningful reason to talk to them rather than just pestering them for 15 minutes of their time on the show floor. I'm sure we can all relate to that, So I'm going to wrap it up there. I know I only have like 10 minutes. So thank you for allowing me to present. I look forward to connecting with each of you. I did put my LinkedIn profile in the chat. I'll do it again. I'm trying to hit 2,000 connections and I'm at 1,991 right now. So I think we can get over the threshold today. So thank you.
Celebrating milestones all around.
That's right.
Thank you for that. Before we pass it to Joani, does anyone have like a specific question or comment about Dave's recap before we pass the baton?
Fantastic recap.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Good job, my friend. All right, Joani, it's all yours.
All good points, Dave. Tough to follow that one. And some of his I share, so I'm not going to bore you and go over anything that he shared with you guys. Mine is a little bit different. took some of the takeaways from the conference in general. Mine is not as much in an organized fashion as Dave, but that's okay, I suppose. But all in all, I think there were lots of excitement and fresh ideas. And, as Dave mentioned, it's kind of what you make of it. So I think the big thing about this conference this year that was really different for me anyways, and it could just be like, I've been in my role for a year now. Last year was kind of new to my role, but I felt like there was so much more opportunity this year for networking. And so I didn't get to participate in as many of the educational sessions as I would have hoped because I had client meetings and those sort of things. But one of my favorite things about Apartmentalize this year was how they included the educational sessions on the actual showroom floor. I thought that was so cool. And that's something that I had only seen at one other conference last year. And it was a hit. I really feel like people were on the showroom floor in the expo, engaging with vendors, and it was so easy just to go pop into a session. And then when they were finished with the session, there was still so much energy, and they were able to flow back and forth from the session to the trade show. And I really hope they keep that up because I feel like the trade show had a different kind of vibe this year because of that. I also noticed that the sessions that were on the showroom floor were packed. I mean, if the session wasn't on the showroom floor, the ones that I attended weren't 100% full, but the ones that were right off the floor were jam-packed, standing room only. So it was very interesting. One other note that I made, I really love seeing all the live podcasts everywhere. That's been a thing at more recent conferences, but it's just so cool to see real time, everybody in their little bubble being interviewed, and then you get to watch it recorded later on LinkedIn. One of the other really cool things I saw that stood out this year was they had a startup zone on the actual trade show floor. So if your company, for any of the startup companies, they were all kind of clustered together in a really small kind of intimate area. They had smaller booths. And I feel like that's so cool to put all the little guys together, fostering innovation and giving them a chance to sort of network in a different sort of way. I thought that was super cool. That reminded me a lot of the Blueprint conference as well. And then one thing that I personally really enjoyed, and Tara and I have talked a lot about this, the health and fitness networking event. So we met for a walk one morning that was put on by JVM Realty and Venn, and we all walked over to the Rocky Steps, and it was just a great opportunity for photographs and networking and getting to know people kind of outside of our fancy clothes. And then Tara and I decided to crash Evan Happel's networking brunch in our gym clothes. So worth it. I was a little hesitant about that, but it's like, it's so casual that, you can still show up in your gym clothes and feel like you can network and make connections. One thing I noticed that was different this year that I've actually never seen before, it's really common for vendor, supplier, partners, whatever you want to call us, to host a happy hour and invite all of these owners and operators, investors. But this year I noticed there were a handful of operators that actually hosted their own happy hour and then called it like a VIP happy hour and invited their vendor partners or vendor partners that they're interested in maybe doing business with in the next year. So I thought that was super cool. And I know everybody knows about Gold Dollar being the first operator to have a booth on the trade show floor. That was super cool. Lots of excitement around their booth. And I think there's definitely going to be more of that to come. One of the other things I literally walked through every single aisle of the trade show, and one vendor I kept seeing. And at one point I just stopped and asked them, and they shared with me that they had not just one booth, but they had 4 booths at the expo. It was pet screening. And I thought that was a brilliant way to sort of maximize their exposure and really just ensure that they were seen. I mean, it's like you couldn't, no matter where you were in the expo floor, you would run into at least one of their 4 booths. And I don't think anyone else has really thought of that. So I thought that was very innovative. And then lastly, I think one thing, just going back to the networking thing, there were a lot of competing networking events. So it was really hard to be everywhere at once. And there were some events that, I had to stop in for 15 minutes and then head to the next one. But I think it's super cool that there are all of these networking events taking place. And I think that it got me thinking there's some definite opportunity to maybe co-host some events at the next conference or the next Apartmentalize with other partners to help draw in a larger crowd or maybe make that gathering more impactful. Because I mean, if it's hard for me to attend, I'm sure it's hard for owners and operators to attend all of them. You have to kind of split your time between. And I think there's opportunity there to kind of partner together to create some of these same scenarios at a different conference. And then, of course, the in-person events always present an opportunity to meet new people from this group. So I finally got to meet Tara, Mike Brewer, and Evan Happel in person. And I mean, I've been connected with them on LinkedIn for over a year now. So it's crazy that it takes that long sometimes for those in-person relationships to come to fruition, but I'm glad that it did. Thankful for this group.
That was such a good recap. And
Thank you.
I love, and that's what I love about these recap calls. It's like everyone can kind of take it in their own direction and it's super cool. So I want to ask you as like, just really quick, and then I know you have to go, but
I wanted to say I don't have to go because softball camp was canceled because of the rain. So there's that. I know.
Wait, and before I ask you the question, should I stop screen sharing so you guys can see more of each other's faces, or do you want me to leave this up?
Either one's fine. You can stop screen sharing. I don't mind.
Okay. So I'm just curious, like from your point of view as a new business owner, you know, you're a year into the revenue method. I'm thinking of the startup zone and just how dang expensive it is, not just national, but like any trade show for a new company is so expensive.
Yeah.
What are the things that you look for to potentially invest in exhibiting? Or did you find, like, because obviously I'm sure you've exhibited in the past with other companies that you've worked for. Do you think you find more value since you did get to hit the whole floor with that strategy? Or do you think there's a down the line where you think you might make a bigger impact for your company exhibiting, or are you kind of on the fence?
So it's interesting because I really love the trade show floor because I have different strategic partnerships with some of these vendors. And so to be able to go see them and get FaceTime with them is important to me and what I do for a living. But I also in the last year have learned that, you know, the ticket to the conference is not equal on both sides. So it's very, very different in cost for an owner operator than it is for a vendor supplier partner. I've signed up for some conferences and then been denied because you're a vendor, you're not allowed to attend. Or they give you access to everything except the expo. So it's like I'm kind of learning the different caveats to each of these conferences. And I think where I get the most bang for my buck is maybe not the largest conference, but where you have, you know, where it's small enough to where you can bump shoulders. And that's why I think this year I spent a lot more time with meeting with clients in person, going to networking events. I didn't hang with the typical group that I usually hang with because I wanted to meet different people. And so I just put myself out there and started attending. I mean, I went to happy hours, walked in on solo. I mean, everywhere I went by myself this year just to kind of put myself out there and force those connections to sort of cultivate. So I'm trying to think the rest of the other part of your question. So I think it's different at each conference, but I'm learning kind of the ropes. I think now after a year of like posting on social media, like people kind of know who the revenue method is. So there's that. Last year I was so new and felt like I was still kind of having to explain what I do and who I am. And now it's like, that's out of the way. Now it's like, let's just connect, you know? So I've had a year under my belt and I'm feeling a little bit more confident about where I am in the space and what we do and even what my value proposition is. It's like all those things you just get better at. So I think this year, this conference was so much better for me and for our company on so many levels. I think the other thing I didn't mention that I really liked about Philadelphia, I really liked how walkable everything was. I felt like last year in Atlanta, you had to take an Uber everywhere. And I ended up spending like $20 for every single Uber ride. And you literally couldn't walk to anything. If you were at the convention center, then you had to Uber back to wherever. So I appreciate the city and the venue this year. I think it made it much easier to get to as many events as possible.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you, if you possibly do exhibit, you have to give out an octopus because your LinkedIn post, octopus was like, I feel like we all saw it and I'm like, yep, that's relatable.
That was like totally blowing up. I know. Talk about impressions. I'm like, I don't know where that one went wild and crazy.
That's so
Wild and
funny.
crazy.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I appreciate the opportunity, Tara.
Yes, ma'am. Tammy Longo, you're up, lady.
Hello, can everyone hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
All right, perfect. So a lot of the stuff that I was going to talk about has already been said as well. I think we'll find common themes here throughout. But one thing that really stood out to me was the amount of live podcasts on the trade show floor and throughout. There were many opportunities to really get to know people and listen in on their podcast, which I thought was really, really cool. You just don't see that live a lot, and I thought that was really neat. I did have marked down the 4 booths as well, and I thought that was really, really cool. Gold Oler, like we talked about, the spamming kind of that Tara talked about was a hot topic. People were just mad. They're just mad. Like, how come we're getting so many emails? Like, okay, I'm sorry I didn't do it. It wasn't me. Now, I have a little bit of a different opinion on the venue. I absolutely disliked this conference center. I thought it was hateful going from one side to the other constantly. I couldn't stand where the registration was so far away from all the sessions that were tucked in corners, like Lia and mine's. It was not only at 8:30 in the morning, but also on the 4th floor that nobody could get to because it was so disconnected from the rest of the show floor. So like that to me was a lot of things to me this year felt very discombobulated and just disconnected, I guess I would say. As far as the walkability, absolutely, the city was great, except it was 120 degrees. So walking outside was not my favorite thing to do, but that's a personal issue. But I didn't love that venue. I loved the city, had a lot of fun going to all the events, but didn't love the venue. I will say the things that I saw the most on the trade show floor were fraud, security, companies, EV charging stations, and a lot of security companies that I noticed. So those were the 3 things that I saw a lot of there. And one thing that I heard over and over again, and Lia, I think you would agree with this, was a lot of talk, obviously, about AI, but about data as well. And it being data people, we were kind of tuned into that. But the overall theme that people were talking to me about is that they need the data, but they don't know how to use the data. So there was a big disconnect of people coming to our booth talking to us about that. Okay, well, if we sign up for this, what do we do with it? What's the value? Like, people have a hard time really connecting with that. And what's happening is they're hiring people from outside sources to come in and interpret and analyze the data because they just don't know how to do it. So that was a big takeaway for me. As far as meeting people, I met a couple people from the group, which was fun. But I didn't have a ton of time as a supplier to really get around to a lot of things either. But one thing that I will say, as far as the conversation about Megan had put in the chat too, about the suppliers not being equal, there has been a lot of movement in that area. I was the chair. I am the chair of the NAA Gives Committee as a supplier, and that's a big deal because that's not something that's happened in the past. It's not just me. There's, I think, 3 of us that are chairs of committees now. Myself and Lia, our session was supplier only. And that was a hard fight for, I don't even know how many years to have that as a panel and as an option. You used to have an owner manager on a panel with you. So there is a shift going on there that I can see. I'd like for it to move a little bit faster, but a lot of us came from the owner operator side too. I've got 15 years on site. I know what they're going through. I know what they're talking about, and I'm paying attention to both sides of it. I'm not just here to sell a product. So, hoping that there's a shift there. One other thing that was cool was the next gen. I don't know if anybody saw the next gen coffee and connections, but I really thought that was very neat. People were invited in to go talk to them and really encourage the next gen. And I thought that was super, super cool. The other thing that I saw was a lot of talk again about KPIs, and that is what Lia and I spoke about too, but it wasn't just us. There were 3 or 4 sessions on it, and maintenance KPIs, and again, what to do with them and what are you measuring. So really trying to help people figure out what's going to help them excel and meet their growth and financial goals seems to be and I think it's in line with what Dave was saying too, where we're going to see a lot of stuff next year. That was the takeaways that I had. Yeah, I mean, I think that's really it. Everything else we've kind of talked about. The parties were great. I didn't get to go to a ton of them. Again, we were just too busy. We host our own party, and then obviously getting to other ones is challenging. But everything that I went to was pretty top notch, and the food in Philly is great. Like, I didn't have a bad meal. It was awesome. And if you didn't go to the Reading Market, shame, because that place is cool. But I think that's all I have. Those are all of the things that I talked about. I think that the future of multifamily is fine. I think we're secure. I just think that there's going to be a shift in how people are analyzing it.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what's funny is the convention center itself. Did you guys also feel like, so there were certain sessions that I wanted to go to had limited time, and it felt like the 10 minutes you had in high school to change classes
Yes.
to like the other side of
Yes.
the country.
And until you realized, which for me was probably way later than anybody else, that if you stayed on the second level, you could get all the way around. But if you were on the first level, you had to go outside, and the people down there were telling you, go outside, walk 3 blocks. Ma'am, it's 120 degrees out, and I have to go meet with a client. Like, what do I do? Yeah. So it was just like, again, I said, it just felt very disconnected for me. And I didn't get those opportunities, or what I call hallway conversations, a lot, because people were moving. So normally you can go outside a session and there's people out there and they're sitting down, maybe working, and you can sit down and talk to them. I didn't have a lot of those opportunities this year because people were just moving.
That's
You
actually,
had to.
did anyone happen to log or like get blown away by how many steps they had each day? Like, was anyone tracking that? Because I don't remember, but I remember it was like off the charts.
Yeah, it was a lot. But I
Yeah,
don't remember either.
I'm trying to sustain that now.
What's that?
I said I'm trying to sustain that right now. I'm trying to still get 15,000 steps a day.
Well, Joani and I had so many because we got lost trying to get to Evan. And by the time we got in there, it was like a hot mess. We were actually a hot mess, but Evan did not allow us to, like, he let us in, even though we were smelly and sweaty, which was so nice.
Yes.
Evan.
Hey, speak for yourself.
Fair.
You know, it took me to the final day to realize that there was another exit off the trade show floor that took me right down to where all of the sessions were.
Yeah.
Like, I had no clue. I kept running underneath and like back and forth. I take the
Right.
escalator.
Yeah,
up,
Pat.
What's that entrance?
Yeah, exactly. And then, of course, as always, every convention center or every show we go to, there's an elevator or an escalator that goes down. And of course, the escalator leading up to our session was broken. So people had to figure out how to go around the backside and up. And so there was just a lot of things like that it just made it feel like, again, a little bit disconnected this year for me.
Yeah, and I never found the NAA sign either. It was so funny.
And that's my whole committee, is the NAA gives wall, and it was way over by registration down around the corner. Like, there was a decent amount of social media, but people didn't have the opportunities that they had with the wall and everything before. And I had some people coming up to me saying, I couldn't even find it. I couldn't get the recognition for my company. We submitted 80 photos and we were told they were on there, but I can't find it. So, it was just, that was a little disappointing, but that's, again, more of a personal thing, but it was still disappointing nonetheless.
I found Starbucks, which was awesome.
Finally, I think I found that the second or third day too, because that was way over tucked in the corner by registration as well.
Priority.
Girl, I've been to like so many conferences and never realized how big that place was, because nothing's ever taken up the whole thing when I've been there.
Pat, that's crazy. You're local to there.
I know, but I knew what Starbucks was.
Yeah.
All the networking happens at Starbucks. I mean, I'm just saying.
That place was a hot mess though.
That was a hot mess. Thanks, Tammy.
Yeah, I thank you all.
Did you? All right, Eric.
Appreciate it.
You are up, my friend.
All right. Yeah, that Starbucks was a lot to get into. Even mobile order ahead sometimes didn't help out, but we got caffeinated. Well, hi everyone. My name is Eric Menzies with Anyone Home. And this was actually my first time in Philly. Not my first NAA, but my first time at Philly. And I love that city. So maybe the opposite of Tammy, what you were saying. But I thought it was such a cool, like it was relatively walkable. I tried to walk inside the street in the shade, of course, just trying to keep it a little bit cooler. But the food, the entertainment, the proximity to everything, it was just, I thought a nice host city. But getting inside the actual conference center, okay, show of hands, like, did anyone actually get to everything that they wanted to? No. Like, if you're raising your hand, you're lying or you're amazing. You are just out of this world, because I did not get to do everything I wanted to do. Now, granted, of course, a lot of my time is spent in our booth, so that's a big part of it. But like, for example, there's a handful of sessions I wanted to make it to, was never able to. I think maybe like 2 or 3. The one I actually did get to that I really wanted to see because I was really interested in the topic. And also because one of my industry friends was presenting it. It was democratizing centralization for large and small firms. Did anybody see that one? No, okay, that was a really good one. It was put on by Sunny. He's the CEO and founder of Canopy Analytics. And I always love when people start with like a poll to actually get to see what everyone's saying. I'm always really interested in centralization because that's a lot of what my company does, right? We do like CRM, AI, chatbots, anything to contact centers, anything to like centralize operations for a company. So that's what I'm always really interested in seeing and learning about. And in the beginning of it, they posted like a poll and asked everyone to submit their answers. And about 44% of the people in that room had said that they had centralized at least one function. And then 25% have centralized multiple functions. So the conversation continued to go on in that session about, what some of the fears are, how to get around them and whatnot. So that was one session that I really liked, but just that data up front, I thought might be kind of fun to share. Most of what my takeaway though, that a lot of really good things have already been said, but is just in the conference center itself in terms of like innovation and where things are starting to go for setup. Joani, I mean, you had mentioned like the trade floor show learning sessions. I thought that was such an amazing thing because of the very reason that I was saying earlier, like, you can't get to all the sessions. You have to run across the street. You got to like get around to actually have it on the floor, allowing you to be closer to the action. I thought that was a really fantastic idea. Obviously Gold Dollar, first ever. I thought that was amazing. I did not know about the dog booth having 4. I just thought there was a lot of dogs around. I guess I'm just too oblivious to know what's going on. I didn't realize it was the same thing. But anyways, yeah, that was a really cool idea. Actually, someone in this group had a really good idea. Joseph Knaack, I'm stealing from him. He had posted on his LinkedIn the other day, like the idea of kind of centralizing like services on a floor, like wherever to go. I thought that'd be kind of a cool idea for the future. But like one thing that our company did to an extent, we kind of clustered brands that work together really well, just to try and make it a little more centralized. So we had the Anyone Home booth next to the Resman booth next to ePremium. We're all like within the same company families. So we tried to like make it easier for our customers doing that. As far as the industry, kind of like some conversations that I had, it's kind of a lot of the same conversations. I'm sure if you've been to any other trade shows this year and maybe even last year, probably kind of similar. Just heard a lot about people's interest in blending both like AI and automation together with an actual human interaction, and what's most effective and what's less effective. And that's kind of what I heard a lot of conversations about. Is which one is like, can you fully replace people with AI, or do you have to like keep the people in there? And every conversation I had, well, almost every single conversation I had, it seemed people always saying that like AI is just a small piece of the puzzle, and I had to agree with them. So that's what a lot of the conversations I heard at the conference. as far as networking experiences, I actually did not get to meet up with any of the multi-family mentor matchmaker group things. So I was really sad about that. Again, just not enough time to actually get around to all the networking things I wanted to. But all in all, again, thought it was a fantastic conference. Really enjoyed seeing all the booths and the different businesses out there and seeing how the industry keeps growing and growing.
I love it. I did not get a chance to meet half the people that were actually there. Like Lauren, we didn't get a chance. Like there's just so many people. And I think, Tammy, it's like to your point where you're like, there wasn't a lot of that water cooler conversation outside of sessions because everyone was rushing. And it's amazing when you don't have that, how much you realize how impactful those are. Just those 5-10 minutes sometimes. And it allows you to reset too, so that you're not like running from Leah's session all the way to Dr. Debbie and then this and then that. And then you're like, you don't even have a minute to like debrief and take in what you just heard and then like share that. So I think that I didn't realize how much I missed it until we didn't have it. So that's key. And Eric, you said that was not your first Apartmentalize, but first time in Philly, right?
I'm Philly, yeah. I think that was my fifth NAA. So I've seen a handful of them now, and same in like last year Atlanta. That was pretty far spread out. And even like for on the vendor side, just having everything together made it so much easier to meet up with people. Like we had an opening party last year, and it was pretty scarcely attended just because I think it was so far. This time it was at Harp and Crown, and the thing was packed. It was a really great time. So just the fact that it was so condensed together, the same way you get it like in San Diego, for example, where everything is so close together, I think that really turns out to be a better event for everyone.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you for your recap. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me on.
Leah, before you jump in, I want to plug your upcoming session. Hold on, I'm trying to see if I have the date handy, unless you memorized it. Hold on. I think I have it. Hang. Oh, here we go. So speaking of, I know a lot of people in this group aspire to have a speaking gig, to get on the stage, not just at NAA, but any association. And so on August 13th at 5 Eastern, Leah's actually going to teach the group how to create winning proposals or creating rock solid conference proposals. So I'm actually so excited about that session because Leah, you've probably, I don't know how many times you've spoke, Paul, you've spoke 100 times. Like there's so many people in this, just on this call, who are speakers. So I'm excited for that. But so I just wanted to plug you, Leah, because I'm looking forward to that call coming up. I can't hear you, which is weird because you're not muted. Are you unplugged?
Hang on, can you hear me?
Gotcha.
Oh my gosh, this happened to me earlier today, and I'm like, the gods are speaking to me. You should have gotten that new headset during Prime Day. Like, why did you not get a new headset during Prime Day? Hey, everybody, I'm Leah. Nice little way to start my session. No, I agree with everybody. The goods, the bads, the highs, the lows. For me, with Apartmentalize, I am the kind of attendee, I'm a very introverted person just by nature. So going to these big conferences where there's a lot of crowds and a lot of noise and, it's really busy, can be very overwhelming for someone like me. And then add to that, I had 2 sessions and I'm not the most comfortable public speaker, which is crazy to have the job that I have. I don't know how I do that every day, but it was a lot of mental sort of gymnastics for me in Philly. And what I did like, I liked already having friends at the conference, people I knew that was going, whether that was from Tara, your matchmaking group, or webinars I've done before, or people that I've known in the industry. So I knew that there was going to be, there were going to be familiar faces there, which made it a lot better for me. I tried to, kind of set times to meet up for coffee, or, Megan, you and I, we were just walking randomly from one event to the other, and I saw you and your mom, and it was able, I was able to jump in and say hello. So for me, those large conferences, I think it's really important to already have sort of a built-in village that's going to be there, that I know I can, like, Tara, I popped in your room when you guys were speaking, and, I need that familiarity when the conference is large like that. And some of Philly, I had to work for it. Other conferences, they were designed, or other venues for NAA, they have been designed where you didn't have to work too hard to seek out those familiar faces or to make sure you connected with people. So for me, it was a little overwhelming in that regard. I did find a lot of quiet time. So while there were events going on at night, I was probably the one back in my hotel room, just decompressing for the day, or kind of mentally getting prepared for the next day. I had a session on Wednesday and Thursday. And so I probably had a different experience because I didn't hang out and I didn't do a lot of the, nighttime stuff, or maybe the things that I did were a little bit more low key than most. But I heard great stories the next morning. And it was, I heard about all the stuff that happened the night before while I was, in my hunkered down in my room. There were some great sessions that I was able to attend. Again, I'm a shy person, so I'm the one that's sitting all the way in the back, but I absolutely pay attention. And one of the things that I liked watching the audience take in the information that the presenters were giving. And so you could totally tell when a presenter would hit a right note, because here comes the phones, they're snapping the screens and they're writing things down and they're talking to each other and nodding their heads. And so you could tell when the light bulbs were turning on. And I thought that was really exciting to sit in a class and kind of absorb it from an attendee's point of view, because that helped me in my sessions. I'm looking out for the head nodding, I'm looking out for the camera snapping, I'm looking out for, the conversations back and forth, because that helps me to say, okay, you're on the right track too with the information that you're presenting. I can't remember how many NAAs I've been to, way too many, but both on the operator and the supplier side. And each time I go, I get a little something different. What I like this year, the overall sort of theme that I took away this year was camaraderie. There's a lot of visible camaraderie in our industry now. It's like we're all in it together, whether you're a supplier, whether you're an operator, it's like we're in this boat. Let's make sure that, we're doing all the things that we need to do to keep it afloat. And there was a lot of camaraderie, a lot of collaboration. I also kind of pay attention to side conversations that I'm not involved in, part of my just nosy, curious nature. And I heard a lot of great sort of side talk, happening, whether people were talking about the sessions that they attended or conversations that they may have had with other suppliers or vendors. So it's nice to see a renewed energy in our industry. I don't know if you guys feel that too, but we as an industry struggled just like we did in our personal lives, just trying to figure things out. And I think what I'm starting to see is that we're figuring it out. We're realizing that this siloed kind of approach that we've had in the past, it's me or them, has kind of gone away. We're being a lot more collaborative as an industry. And it's so just, it's a breath of fresh air compared to how things, used to be. We're sharing data, with each other. We're sharing best practices with each other. There's a lot of more alignment than what probably we've seen. In the past, it's been very competitive. I don't know how better to describe it, but even conversations at a trade show booth, it's like positioning as opposed to being more consulting. We want to help our clients, or we want to help the industry. So I don't know what's going to happen in Vegas. I complained about the heat in Philly. I should have probably kept my mouth shut because Vegas is going to be a whole nother beast that we're all going to have to deal with. I will say there are, I think, 5 or 6 hotels that are on the monorail. If you guys can get one of those so that you can just take the monorail back and forth to the convention center and maybe not have to go out in that 150-degree heat. But I loved it. I attended sessions that really spoke about the future of our industry. So whether that was tech, whether that was Gen Z, whether that was, looking forward predictive analytics. I mean, I'm a huge data nerd. So I was looking at sessions that kind of moved us forward 2 years from now, as opposed to like, what's the problem today and how do we talk about today's topic? So there's a lot of really interesting things in the industry that's happening right now. I met from the matchmaker group, Dave, he was just on. He came to one of my sessions. We took a photo together. It was just great to have like new friends. And then also those that you're very familiar with. I go to NAA as a speaker and as a supplier. So for me, it's a little different in that I'm an educator, but I'm also a vendor. And I don't think I spend as much time looking at NAA from a vendor's perspective. I look at it more in terms of like the knowledge that's being shared. So I can't offer a whole lot of insight about the exhibit space and the, booth and things like that. But I think you guys pretty much nailed it and, covered it. I look at it more like education. What are people walking away with? I wish, if I could change anything, I wish the sessions were longer, not in terms of content, but in terms of Q&A, because you only have so much time to get the content out, but then you have to reserve time for Q&A. And whether that's like, people get up in front of a mic and ask a question, or it's just more space between sessions for people who are like me that don't want to get in front of a mic in a room full of people and ask a question, but I might walk up to the speaker when it's over. So having more time in between those classes, I think could be really helpful. That 10 minutes, not enough. It's just not enough to break down a session, get the new speaker, it's just not enough time. So whether that's building in, 75 minutes where you can do content, live Q&A, and then a good gap between the sessions for people that don't want to be on a mic and ask their question, out loud in front of the room.
I think I'm so glad you brought up, it looks like Joani agrees. I'm just looking at the chat. Like I didn't think about it until you brought that up about the Q&A, because if anyone went to Cultivate last year, that is one of the best parts about that conference is you had the chance, because oftentimes we're all thinking similar things and maybe no one asks, or there's no time, or you're too shy, or whatever the circumstance is. But I often find that I learn a lot more from the sessions hearing from my peers than necessarily the speaker, not to discount the speaker, but I feel like that's when like a lot more of that camaraderie that you're talking about happens naturally. So building in that extra time, I think, is a super awesome point and could provide a lot more value.
Well, I think Eric brought up a great point that the session he went to, it immediately started out with a poll, right?
Yeah.
It immediately, got people thinking or talking or kind of, warm them up to the information. You can kind of already see where people are before the speaker even starts to, give their presentation. And so it's, I learn a lot by attending these sessions that helps me with future, sessions that I'm going to be doing. So yeah, thanks Eric for that nice little tidbit. I'm going to use it.
Use it. It's a good
Yep.
one. Good way to go.
Absolutely.
I love it. Really good recap. Thanks, Leah. And last but not least at all is our beautiful smart chick, Megan Orser.
Hey guys, so I was just going to repeat everything that everybody, no, I'm kidding. I'm not going to repeat anything. I have a list of other things, and I wanted to plug that I have been using Lia Nichole Smith submission outline for probably 6 years now, and it is the magic submission template. It's how the judges that judge that want to read it. So I'll share the version I have. She probably has a better version now 6 years later, but definitely you just got to know the game and how to play it. So I wanted to share a couple of different perspectives, and I think one of my favorite part of all the meetings, but especially this Apartmentalize, was what happened on Tuesday before NAA actually starts and all the governance and awesome things that we did there. So we started really early at like 7:30 in the morning on Tuesday, and we actually met with Richard J. Monocchio, who is the Principal Deputy Assistant Secretary for Public and Indian Housing with HUD. And we actually got to have a sit-down debrief breakfast, and we talked about the housing choice voucher, how that's impacting our industry, how we'd like it to be better. And he sat there and listened to our complaints without getting defensive. He shared some of his points of views and maybe where he's come from in his with the administration and as far as HUD. But what I really loved and that I took away from that is NAA and HUD are partnering together for the next year, and they're actually doing a road show going across the country. And they're going to be meeting with our local affiliates to talk about the housing choice voucher and how we can bring this conversation to our local level, so that we can come up with another solution to housing affordability. So I thought for the first time, it really felt like we were trying to work on this challenge together, as opposed to just shouting at each other and throwing shade at HUD and then throwing shade back at us. It really was, let's come together and fix this issues. I think there's issues on both sides. We all agree to that. So let's fix it for the better of our industry and the residents that live in our units. So I loved that. Then we broke right into committee meetings. And this year I serve as the chair of the Independent Rental Owner Committee. So I wanted to share some of our wins. The Independent Rental Owner Committee has been working on a project for the last 8 years with the Click and Lease program to bring a small property lease to independent rental owners. Just real quick, if you're familiar with the Blue Moon Click and Lease, it's amazing and wonderful for large operators. But if you're a small property manager, it didn't exist to us. And we have different languages, different laws, different pass-throughs and responsibilities. And so I'm happy to announce that the small property lease now exists in 42 of the 50 states, and that is Click and Lease is working on diligently to bring that to more small property owners. So we think that's a really, really big win. Another win that came out of the IRO community is our collaboration with the suppliers. So we will have future articles coming out of units, as well as some updates in our podcast, but talking about our collaboration with the supplier partners and how the supplier partners have really answered back in our requests for specific carve-outs or supply or tools actually for the independent rental owner community that maybe in the past were more for larger operators, but again, now looking at it for the small mom and pops. Why are we looking at IROs? Well, there's a lot of statistics out there, but I wanted to share with one I read today. So large operators make up about 16 million of our units across the country, where small operators make up about 22 million of the units across the country. So even though we seem small, we are pretty large. It's just really learning how to address this market and how we can bring us all together. So that will bring us a lot of power and legislation, as well as the future of our membership growth. So on Tuesday, another win happened. The NAAEI Board of Directors met, and they actually elected Marcy French to be the incoming vice chair of NAAEI. So Marcy French is moving into leadership for the Education Institute, and we're really excited for everything that's coming from that. There's a lot of collaborations coming from the independent rental owners, as well as the suppliers. And I think the future of education is really, really bright. So Then Wednesday morning, we rolled into our region meetings. I was impressed in Region 3, we had standing room only. So we had a really good turnout. It's been amazing to see over the last 9 years that the Region 3 meetings, specifically in our region, just grow. When I first started going, there were a lot of empty seats, not a lot of interest in finding out about our region, and now we have standing room only. They were bringing in more chairs. So I think that really speaks volume to our industry wanting to get involved. We had Region 3 elections, as well as many other regions had their elections. And so I know Kendra Butterfield was elected as a regional vice president to her region. I also was as well. And so we're looking forward to future leadership and representing on the board of directors. So what else did I want to tell you? Board reception, if you got to go to that, that was at the Masons, which was an amazing building. And if you get to go back to Philadelphia, please make sure you visit that, because it's like where Benjamin Franklin and other founding presidents would wear their fancy Mason outfits and drink drinks. And it was a beautiful building, right across the street from City Hall. And then I wanted to share 2 wins, I thought. So at the board meeting, a DE&I work group actually presented to the board to bring a Spanish lease to the Click and Lease program. So I was actually shocked to find out that we have no other version of the lease in any other language. We have applications in Spanish, but we don't have the lease language in any other language, which is kind of sucky. And so, but finding out more, it's really expensive to update the lease, like somewhere between $30,000 and $50,000 to update the document. But that was actually something that the DE&I committee presented to the board in hopes that they would spend the money and first tackle Spanish and then move on to Mandarin and then other requested languages. So I think as far as inclusivity, there are a lot of awesome things coming out of that. And then I did want to share, lastly, that the future of the Outlook, lots of feedback before the conference, I think even during the conference as far as education. A lot of the participants are saying they don't want to see large panels anymore. They don't want to see 4 and 6 people on the stage. They really want to see more intimate conversations. I can only share this as a past EAV member, that's what the submissions need to match, because if we say that in the survey, but then we only submit panels of 4 and 5 people for the EAV to review, then we're not giving them a lot of options. So my request is to look more at the fishbowl concept that was tried out and I think was very successful. Or if you must do a panel, then maybe limit that to maybe 2 or 3 heavy hitters. And then I would really like to see people go deeper and niche down on not such a broad topic, but more a specific topic. I don't think we have enough time in 45 minutes to cover the whole conversation of AI. I'd rather us maybe focus on like one super specific area and then go deep with specific experts and people that practice that all the time, not necessarily people that just started adopting it 90 days ago. And with that, I'm going to end.
You brought up some really good points. Back to Cultivate, they implemented the fishbowl concept. And that was my first time being a part of something like that. This is why I don't like square or rectangle tables. I love a round table because I feel like when you're kind of really looking at everybody eye to eye and they're not all the way down there and you can't make eye contact, it encourages people to talk more. It helps you build trust and it just kind of breaks some of those walls down. So I know some of the rooms are obviously not conducive to have hundreds of people in a fishbowl concept, but I do like maybe seeing some of the more intimate, less 4 to 5 panel heavy. I think that's a really good point.
Hey Tara,
yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. It's Ian. I actually did a fishbowl. I snuck in about half an hour ago. I did a fishbowl, and I will say it solves for some of the Q&A conundrum as well. Just because with that kind of open format, we had 3 people, we did a fishbowl. Now it was Friday going into the afternoon, so you can imagine what attendance looked like. That's a whole nother issue that I'll gripe about until I'm blue in the face. But for those that did attend, it was a nice open forum. We had someone eventually grab a mic and come sit with us and then rotate it out, and someone else did. And it really was more thought-provoking and interactive than anything that I've spoken on in the past. So it works. I liked it a lot.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan. Thanks for sharing that. And you scared the crap out of me. I'm like, when did he get here?
If you leave your camera off, you can be sneaky.
Yeah, apparently. Are you sitting by a pool again?
Maybe.
Maybe. Megan, I always like it when you're on these calls just because, to your point, like the IRO segment is not always like, I think that we think they're small, but they're not. So like having your voice and your perspective is helpful because I don't remember the percentage that I saw, but when I was at Assembly of Delegates, was that the one in San Diego?
Mm-hmm.
They put up the stats of like how many IROs attend NAA, and it's so small. Like it's so, I think, isn't it like less than 1%?
It's very small. And part of that is you kind of have to self-identify as an IRO for us to count you as an IRO. And so our belief is that there's a lot more that are attending. They just either aren't identifying as an IRO or don't realize maybe that they are. So we have a little bit of an identity crisis. And I have a question for the prop tech community, if it's okay to just maybe pose this out there because I don't really understand it. And so I'm trying to understand. I was listening to a podcast that Sydney Weber was hosting, and she had a guest on there that talked about your TAM, your total addressable market, and that when prop tech companies go to bid and say, hey, this is, software or whatever that we should offer, they do a study and they address the market and they say how many people can absorb it. My question is if that study is being done and the statistics show that there's more IROs out there, then wouldn't that mean there would be more tools for IROs? Am I missing like a big ask here? I mean, I can't be the only one that sees that, and I don't want to say that prop tech companies are purposely avoiding them, but I have questions.
Justin, do you have an answer, or do you have a question? Because I see you.
I mean, it's not a complete answer, but I think I think when you're in a large company, you can get data from that company that can be given to that prop tech organization. Whereas when you have all these disparate groups, there isn't as much collective data that just focuses on that vertical. So it's not as easy to access. I'm sure it's there somewhere, but if you're buying data or doing your own studies, it's really hard to say because you have a lot of things that vary just on product type and then region. And then you have all these it's probably a business opportunity for someone to organize that data and have that there for people that build tech, because it's not, someone could easily build tech based on like a mass thing. It's like mass production. So it's like we need like boutique data for this kind of stuff to build, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I see Mike put in the chat, more fragmented, so somewhat harder to reach in service. Yeah, that sounds like it could be a whole session, Megan, like just trying to dive deeper.
Yeah, and I'm new to that concept, and I thought that was an interesting takeaway from that podcast, and not something that just the prop tech community should be doing, but we should even be doing on the operator side.
Yeah. Good point.
Tara, if I could jump in real fast, I
100%
agree with Megan that IRO is a massively underserved market. In a lot of cases, they're not quite as sophisticated, but in a lot of cases they are, and we definitely see, like, we've identified this as an opportunity. We're partnered up with Appfolio. We're integrated with their services and building on that because we know and we see that that's an underserved group. In a lot of cases, what we see is a big mix. A big part of that mix is scattered site property managers, and so it's a slightly different approach. But Megan would love to chat with you offline and talk more about this, because I do think that it's an underserved group that needs the help of the folks on this call.
And I'll just say that Scattered also, as we view it, is centralized. And we've been running centralized operations since like the beginning of property management. So if we can look
100%.
at operators and say, hey, you can centralize, then I think there's still some room to grow for IROs. But yeah, I want to have that conversation. Mike and anybody who wants to have it with us.
You guys bring up some good points. I want to touch on a couple quick things just from my perspective and then open it up for anyone else that wants to kind of chime in on either this Apartmentalize, how it compared to past, anything you're doing to prepare for next year already. But I think one of the things that stood out to me is trying to come up, like, obviously my mind is always about mentorship and helping others. And so what can we do for the startup zone folks, or maybe the folks like Joani or Chris? I don't know if you're still on the call, but people who are just getting their business started, maybe want to exhibit in the startup zone, but don't really have like a buddy or a mentor, or like, I almost feel like the startup zone is the Thanksgiving kids table, right? Like you almost have like that, oh, look at those morons over there. They're in like the little timeout zone. And it's almost like not flattering. And I really feel like it would be better if there's a way, and I know the economics of the booth costs and all of that play a factor in terms of floor placement, but if there's such a way to have like a larger supplier share some of their booth space with a startup, to have like a buddy or like a support system, because I wonder how many of those new suppliers that go to the startup zone don't return because maybe they felt lack of support. They don't really know where to go. They just don't quite know how to navigate it. It's a very, very, very overwhelming show if you don't have support. So I'm just trying to figure out, I don't have a solve for it necessarily, but I feel like that's something that we could do better. Megan, what did you put in the chat? We have partnered with Belfour and did, okay. So like, I think, so isn't there maybe something we could do as an industry that's a little bit better for these startup zone folks that doesn't make them feel like they're at those Thanksgiving kids table? I don't know what that is, but I just feel
So Tara, I actually, I kind of have the opposite take on it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I talked with a few folks in the startup area, and like, I think it's the best bang for your buck to get in the door, because if you even do a 10 by 10 space, you're going to end up spending probably 3 to 4x just to get in the door, right? So if all I'm trying to do, and you know, it's been mentioned by some of the other folks on the call, if you come in with a plan and you have meetings set and you know clients and prospects that you're going to meet with, all I need to do is get in the door, and if they can give me a podium and a TV to do some demos, and that is, you know, a third or a quarter of the cost, and I'm in, then that's all I need to make stuff happen.
That's what I was going to say, is I think some of these big mammoth companies were probably a little jealous of the cost for the tiny little startup. It looks like a little reception or like a podium. But it was super cute. They had their own TV and their own monitor. I mean, I feel like they were very well represented, and they were right in the middle of the whole trade show floor. So I feel like they had really good exposure too.
I agree with both of you, and would also add on that the couple times that I went over there, they were like best friends. It was such a cool environment. They were all collaborating, all talking to each other. Everyone was just learning about everyone else's products, and the information sharing was great. And they all walked out with a whole set of new friends. And I'm pretty sure they went through this experience together too. They were really chatty and really like into learning about each other, which was just awesome. I went over there more times than I probably should have, just because I like the environment, and the camaraderie I thought was just fantastic in that space.
That makes me feel better. So maybe I was just making something out of nothing.
Well,
I just want to make sure.
I will say something here, because I was in that startup zone. I'm the founder of Loyal Locations, so I had a booth there. And you know, we were there, and yes, it was expensive for me being a startup, right? I'm on a tight budget, so that price was pretty expensive for me to do. And it was very extremely overwhelming. Didn't even know where to look being in that in NAA. It was my first NAA, first time being there. So it was extremely overwhelming. There were so many people, so many massive booths. Like I didn't even know what to look at. So me being in that startup zone and being with those other companies, we actually were very disappointed about it. There wasn't a lot of foot traffic coming through. So out of all those people there, I mean, I think my booth, my team, we only talked to about 15 people. And that's just people I didn't know, but we had other people like mentors that I've known bring people over. But we had so many people walk through and say, I don't even know what this is, or oh, I didn't even know you guys were over here, or what's the startup zone? There wasn't a lot of marketing for us to be there. And I even had some other startup founders that were there leave early because they were getting nothing. So they just packed up their booth and they just walked out very disappointed. And that was my experience. And I will say for you, Tara, it kind of put a bad taste in my mouth for the whole NAA Apartmentalize, considering, you know, Las Vegas is coming up. And I'm like, do I really want to do that again? Was it worth my time this year? And I would say no. I probably should have saved that money and put it to something else. It was nice seeing my mentors there, but what we got out of it just wasn't worth the price that I paid. But that was just my opinion.
So, Chris, thank you for being honest with your feedback. I'm curious, have you, and I'm not trying to throw the association under the bus by any stretch, but I'm just curious, follow up. So the show has been a little over a month since it closed. Has there been any specific follow-up other than like a general survey that you've received as a startup, as a first timer that you want to talk about?
Are you talking about from NAA, like a survey?
Yeah.
Well, we had a lady from NAA walk around the startup zone asking us to fill out a survey there, if that's what you're talking about.
I'm more curious about like the follow-up since the show. Has there been anything to kind of get some of this feedback that I think is important for them to hear?
No, I haven't gotten anything. I haven't received anything from them. I haven't filled out any surveys. I never had that opportunity to share that feedback besides at that show. We had a lady walk around just asking, oh, like, how's your experience being in the startup zone? And I was honest, you know, the other founders that were there, they were honest, and she seemed disappointed about it. But she was just there to take our survey. But that was the only thing that we had.
That's good feedback. So, I mean, if anyone is on, you know, the Apartmentalize committee for next year, I think this would just be good. Or if someone knows someone that's on that committee, whatever we can do. I just always have a soft spot for the people like Chris and Joani and like just anyone who's really taking like those dollars and doing what they can to get exposure. So, you know, lean on the mentor group as much as possible to help. But yeah, I just think, I always think it's like a crucial opportunity. It kind of makes me feel like when you're at an apartment community, you focus so much on getting new people in the door, but what about the people who just moved in? How are you nurturing their first year experience at your community? So kind of similar. So we've got 15-ish minutes. I want to open it up to anyone on the call. Anything that anyone wants to share related to either the conference or anything else going on?
I mean, I have a comment, and because I missed the first 15 or 20 minutes, it may have already been brought up, but some of you know, because I see you at all of these, right? I work the conference circuit quite a bit, do a lot of speaking. And when I compare this to other conferences, and I look at specifically, my friends on the supplier side, one of the flaws, if you will, is how we open the trade show floor and when comparative to the sessions. And when I say that, what I think ends up happening for me is it's a competition. Do I go to a session, or do I go where I know that companies have spent tens, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars or more to get that time with me. And when I looked at it this year, and the fact that you really had a day, and by a day, I mean you had, I believe it was a 6 or 7 hour window to hit the trade show floor. And you could argue and say, well, Ian, you had all day Friday. Well, yeah, but I would venture a guess to say 50 or 60% of the people leave on Friday, especially in a location like Philadelphia, where I knew a lot of people that couldn't get nonstops home, and unless you live in, Atlanta, DC, New York, or Chicago, you probably were connecting. And so, looking at that, maybe, and I know I have people on here that are going to be like, don't do that to me, but maybe you push the Tuesday meetings toward the end, and put the meat of the content and these people that are spending millions of dollars to get FaceTime, and put that midweek, so that you have less, call it, conference attrition toward the end.
That's a good point.
So I've attended Tamala Koval's event, and there's this OG salesperson. I won't say who he is, but he told me that his trick for the last 20 years is he just flies in for the committee meetings, and he sees all the C-level executives that he wants to see at the committee meetings, and he darts out on Wednesday.
Yep.
And so, I guess if you're on a tight budget. The other thing I wanted to mention is, I do think there was a little bit of competition between the trade show and the sessions, I think. But it just is an interesting energy when people are coming out of the session and into the trade show and back and forth. Like, I feel like those sessions got a lot more attendance than the other ones that were really far down the hallway. And I do think there needs to be equal opportunity for registration fees. Like, it's a whole lot of money for me to sign up, and my clients are, owners and operators. And when you think about fee managers that attend, their registration fee, they're there to sell their business too. They're there to pitch to their owners and their investors, and they're selling their fee management, but they're paying like 1/5 of the price that I'm paying to send one person. NAA, TAA didn't let me go through their expo, and I paid, I think, $3,000 to attend. NAA, I paid $3,000 to attend, and I could go through the expo. So there's you have to read the fine lines and know what you're signing up for. I did sign up for Cultivate, didn't read the fine lines there, and got kicked out because I'm a supplier. And it's a minimum sponsorship of $15,000. It's like, I just don't know if you have to weigh your options and make sure it's going to be enough bang for your buck.
I will say, and not to be confrontational, so please don't take it that way. As a fee manager, and we own and manage, I don't know anyone in the fee management side that goes to Apartmentalize and goes, I scored fee managed business. It's kind of just like the suppliers spending the substantial dollars. Most of the decision makers are not in the room. You might get in front of some asset managers and some institutional ownership groups, but for the most part, that's NMHC, that's IRM and some other things. The target audience is not at NAA, and I've said this to Tara, and I don't mind saying it on this. Most of my peers, in the executive level fee managed space, they'll go if they're speaking, and if not, they don't, just because it's not the conference for that.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think there's a lot of people that do the whole let me fly in for my thing and get out, because to Ian's point, they're not there to go walk the trade show floor and get a plush toy and a bubble gun and it's not their vibe, right? I will say where I find a lot of the impact is I'm on that marketing communications, not committee with NAA. They won't call it a committee, which is fine, but where I think a lot of the impact of understanding what current owner managers are facing and what trends are going on in the industry is when you sit in the gallery of those committee meetings that are always open. I think a lot of people forget that those are open door to anyone. And I think that's where I have found, even before I was on the non-committee committee, I would go crash a lot of those meetings and just no better way to hear what challenges the industry is facing and help you kind of be proactive instead of reactive than sitting in those galleries. So anytime you can go to like Advocate or Assembly of Delegates or Apartmentalize and go to those meetings, I honestly think that that's some of the best meat and potatoes to fly in for than anything, truly. It's tough because they're all happening simultaneously, so you're not going to obviously hit every single one. But that's where I think a lot of people forget that I don't think it's touted or people aren't as informed that they get to crash those things if they're not on the committee. So that's kind of my 2 cents where I find a lot of value. What else? Anyone else want to share anything?
I just have one thing that I've talked with some people about, but something that's changed like after our kind of whole work culture has changed a lot, and there's less offices and there's more remote and more like these are also places for companies both on the owner operator and on the supplier side to gather, and that's a whole other element of scheduling that didn't exist 6-7 years ago. So I think aligning with that in terms of like sponsorship or making FaceTime or whatever, but like figuring out ways to say, hey, I want to support your team coming together to do XYZ. How can I be a part of that? I think that might be where the future's going, because I see a lot of people that have like, they have their team dinner, or they haven't met their boss, or they haven't, they're all doing that. And we're doing it too. I think our companies are doing it too.
That's a really good point.
I have 2 things.
Yeah.
No one mentioned Justin Dilley singing at Tamala Koval's event, and I still haven't seen like a full-on video of that, Justin.
Oh, I didn't even know about it.
And no one mentioned Evan's boss necklaces. Like everyone was there for that swag.
I didn't get any of that because I had to, what did we spend 10 minutes?
I should have worn mine.
You need it? You don't have a boss necklace?
No, I said I need another
I'll go
one.
get mine.
Oh, okay.
How would you say your boss brunch was? Because it also was, from the time I was there was a ton of people, but that was simultaneously against, was it the Next Gen event?
A lot of like committee, or not even committee, but the I think awards and things were happening that morning.
It was the Regions meeting.
Yeah, I mean, there's always something happening. It's hard to pick a perfect time.
Yeah.
NAA is trying to do stuff, whatever.
Yeah.
See, there it is.
There's the bling. Leah, you got your hand up.
Yeah, I was just going to throw this out there. One of the things that we talked about at our booth, you know how you have a little downtime and the whole team is like brainstorming. We talked about NAA does this, but offering like attendance scholarships to our clients. So if you had a top performing manager or a top performing regional that you want to, acknowledge, we would sponsor their registration fee to come to Apartmentalize. I think it would be great if we saw more community managers getting to be able to attend and Apartmentalize, because these are going to be your future, regionals, trainers, CEOs, whomever, but to give them those opportunities on the ground floor. And I know that's something that NAAEI does. They have a scholarship program, but again, it's just one to a leasing associate, one to a regional, one to a manager. And if maybe that's something that as suppliers, we, took on as well, offering those, as appreciation. to our client partners. So we're actually working on a program right now that we're going to be reaching out to our client partners to sponsor. And it doesn't have to be an Apartmentalize. It could be, you know, any conference, AIM, you know, their local state association. There's a lot of different conferences that happen during the year that people don't get an opportunity to go to, and cost is one of the factors.
Yeah, 100%. I need to accelerate. Probably, I've mentioned this a handful of times on some of our calls, that the mentor group specifically, one of my missions is to have scholarships for the purpose you just said, and awarding it to select individuals in this group. I have not figured out what that criteria looks like, but I agree with you, Leah. Evan.
Yeah. So so we did exactly what Leah's talking about. We have a program we're just getting kicked off called Ambassador. And we brought one of our community managers that uses our product to Apartmentalize. We told them they could, you know, go to sessions, and they did, and they had a lot of fun, but they also spent a lot of time in our booth and were a representative of our company. And they chose to do that, and we're excited to do that. They spoke really well of our company. They'd never been to Apartmentalize. It was a very great experience for them. They'd never really had the opportunity to see the vastness of the industry to that degree. And so it really was a huge win for their personal development as well.
I love that. Well, you know, I love the play on the name. Like, I'm such a sucker for that thing. I think that's so smart. But like, I think if supplier partners can take away one thing, I think that's a really smart way to have, like, if you're going to a booth, like if Ian's walking around and he sees someone who's actually a customer of maybe one of the supplier partners and can hear and maybe kind of go off on their own, and he can ask some private questions about their experience with that particular partner. I think there's a lot of value to that. So that's a win-win on both sides. I hope that becomes more of a trend. I think that's really cool.
We're going to do it more. Just say that.
I love that.
It was awesome.
So my dog's being really needy right now, but if does anyone have any last final thoughts before we jump? And wait, Justin, so how do we see you singing? Like, do I have to text Tamala and be like, where's this video?
By the way, I had no idea it was him. He was all dressed up in disguise, and it was amazing.
He says he doesn't know. We're gonna find it.
Himself off as you're asking that. I think that he needs to go put the costume on and do it. What a great way to close the show, and now he'll never speak to me again.
Yeah, that's so funny. So we can't close the call without asking Michelle what's for dinner. Michelle, what's for dinner?
Tacos.
Oh, I want some tacos. Well, I think next week, just as a quick thing, I don't think we have a meet and greet call scheduled next week, but I think what I'm going to try to do is a speed round of mentor matchmaking. So I might try to throw a random call on the calendar next week. And I have been behind in matching and my duties. So look out for that. Look out for the Pages, Podcasts, and Peers invite that will be coming. So again, that's August 14th, 12 Eastern. The book is The Respectful Leader. So that is all I have. One last open forum before we all hop off. Any last thoughts?
I dropped a link in the chat if y'all want to check it out. So I was raised in Las Vegas, and thinking ahead for next year, I just sent you a chat that has like one of the best old style, like you want old Vegas. It's on the Strip. It's called the Pepper Mill. Ooh. And they have the coolest, like 60s, 70s-ish setup with like the round like booths. They're all velvet. It's all like very dark and pink, and they've got food, and they have like the scorpion drinks, like where the shareable bowl drinks. Not saying everyone drinks alcohol. I do not, but yeah. So it's a great, cool place that probably no one else is going to know about unless they're from Vegas.
Thank you for sharing. I love these little inside scoops. So it sounds like a lot of us need to get together and maybe the mentor group can host something there. We can just have, let's do it. Who wants to help me plan that thing? Let's do it. Maybe by then I'll have a job.
I want to help sponsor, but do I have to help plan?
No. No,
I can help plan since I know Vegas.
Okay, Kendra, we're all going to use you as a resource now.
Oh yeah, I can tell you the best clubs. I can, if you all want to go clubbing. I don't know if I know it's very short amount of time. I know, and there's already tons of parties.
There is. Dave, I saw your message. I'll call you. The rest of you, thank you so much for a great call. There's Bella. Chris had to bring on Bella. What's up, Bella?
See, this is why I wasn't on the camera the whole time, because she's just been laying on me. She's heavy.
I love it. Thank you to everyone that volunteered and brought their takeaways, and thanks for the participants. These are one of my favorite calls. Our conference recap calls have been awesome. So thanks y'all. And I'm around if anyone needs anything, but thank you guys. Appreciate y'all.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.